It was a cool, ink-black night in a bustling suburban neighborhood. A night when the usual hum of traffic and distant chatter was replaced by an uneasy silence. The streets, usually alive with laughter and friendly greetings, had succumbed to an eerie calm, as if holding its breath before an unseen storm. Under the pale glow of streetlights, a solitary figure walked along the sidewalk. Michael, a kind-hearted man known by his neighbors for his gentle demeanor and warm smile. At his side trotted Duke, his loyal Pitbull companion, whose muscular frame and alert, soulful eyes had long belied the misunderstood reputation of his breed. Michael and Duke had shared countless quiet walks, each one a meditation in companionship and trust. On this night, however, the ordinary stroll would soon transform into a harrowing test of loyalty and bravery, a moment that would forever change Michael's life and cement Duke's place as a guardian in the truest sense. As they ambled down the familiar street, the soft clack of Duke's paws on the pavement blended with the distant sounds of a city settling into slumber. The duo exchanged the silent understanding that comes with years of togetherness, a wordless bond forged through countless shared moments of joy and sorrow. Michael's thoughts were a mix of gratitude for his beloved companion and quiet reflection on the simple pleasures of life. Little did he know that the night had other plans in store. Without warning, a disturbance shattered the tranquility of their walk. Out of the shadows emerged a group of individuals whose presence was as menacing as it was unexpected. Their eyes glinted with hostility, and their postures exuded an air of intimidation. In the dim light, their intentions were all too clear. One of them had set his sights on Michael, and his eyes glowed with the promise of violence and theft. Duke, who had been trotting calmly beside his owner, suddenly stiffened, his ears pricked up, and an instinctual alertness took over as he sensed the imminent threat. The change in his demeanor was instantaneous. A deep, resonant growl began to rumble from his chest as he positioned himself between Michael and the approaching danger. The Pitbull's body tensed, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to be unleashed. Michael felt a surge of both fear and awe. He had always known Duke to be protective, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. The attackers moved with predatory precision, one of them stepping forward with a menacing glare, his hand reaching out as if to snatch something precious from Michael. It was in that critical moment, when time seemed to slow to a crawl, that Duke's fierce loyalty exploded into action. With a series of commanding barks that cut through the heavy night air, Duke lunged toward the assailant, his massive form a blur of determination and raw power. The first blow was not a physical one, it was a warning. Duke's barks echoed off the nearby buildings, a cacophony of defiance that sent shivers down the spines of the attackers. Their eyes widened in surprise as the Pitbull's imposing presence disrupted their carefully laid plans. In an instant, the dynamic of the confrontation shifted. Where the assailant had planned an easy robbery, he now faced an obstacle he had never anticipated, a creature whose loyalty and courage were as fierce as any human defender. Duke's instincts were razor sharp. He circled around Michael, positioning himself like a living shield. His eyes locked onto the aggressors with an unwavering gaze, as if daring them to come any closer. The street, once a backdrop for a simple nightly walk, had transformed into a battleground. Michael, heart-pounding, clutched Duke's leash with trembling fingers while trying to assess the situation. The attackers, momentarily taken aback by the Pitbull's resolute stance, exchanged uncertain glances. Their plan was unraveling, and the energy of the night had shifted toward a dangerous, unpredictable confrontation. The sound of shuffling footsteps and hushed curses filled the air as the would-be muggers hesitated. Reassessing their options, one of them, bolder than the rest, tried to step forward with a snarl, brandishing a switchblade that glinted ominously under the streetlights. In that split second, Duke's protective instinct reached its zenith. With a fierce snarl and a burst of speed, he darted forward and seized the man's arm, using his powerful jaws not to maim, but to firmly grasp and restrain him. The attacker, caught off guard by the Pitbull's sudden ferocity, cried out in pain and shock as Duke's grip tightened. The struggle was intense, a flurry of movement and raw emotion, the sounds of barks mingling with the muffled curses of the assailant. In the chaos that followed, Michael's world narrowed to the sound of Duke's defiant growls and the desperate shouts of the aggressors. Neighbors, awakened by the commotion, began to peer out from behind curtains and over fences. Their eyes widened as they witnessed a scene that could have easily been ripped from the pages of a crime thriller. One neighbor, trembling with adrenaline and concern, reached for his phone to call the police. The urgency in his voice as he reported the unfolding incident conveyed not only the danger at hand but also a deep admiration for the Pitbull's protective valor. Amid the confusion, Duke maintained his steadfast position, ensuring that Michael remained unscathed. His actions were not those of a mindless fighter, rather, they were a deliberate, almost preternatural expression of loyalty and love. Michael, though overwhelmed by fear and disbelief, managed to take cautious steps backward, guided by Duke's unyielding presence. In the blink of an eye, the dynamics of the confrontation began to shift further. The attackers, realizing that their advantage had been lost and that the situation was spiraling beyond their control, exchanged hurried words and, one by one, retreated into the night. Their hurried departure left behind an air of disarray and a palpable sense of relief that mingled with the lingering adrenaline. The street slowly returned to a semblance of its former stillness, but the echoes of Duke's barks and the raw tension of the altercation hung in the air like a charged aftershock. Michael, his heart still racing, sank to his knees, overcome by a torrent of emotions: gratitude, fear, and an overwhelming sense of indebtedness to his four-legged guardian. Duke, his sides heaving with exertion, circled back to Michael and nuzzled his hand with a tender yet resolute gesture, as if to reassure him that all was now well. In that quiet, charged moment, amidst the fading shadows of violence, a bond was reaffirmed, one that transcended words and was written in the language of loyalty and survival. In the minutes that followed, sirens began to wail in the distance as the neighbors' call to the police had taken effect. Blue and red lights danced on the pavement as officers arrived on the scene, their presence a welcome assurance that order was being restored. The police quickly secured the area and began taking statements from witnesses who had gathered along the curb. Among the onlookers were several who expressed awe at Duke's actions, many remarking that they had never seen an animal act with such a deliberate sense of duty. One bystander recalled, with a mix of wonder and relief, that he had immediately dialed 911 upon seeing the Pitbull's ferocious stance. His testimony, like many others, highlighted how Duke's bravery not only thwarted a potentially violent mugging but also served as a catalyst for the entire neighborhood to come together in a moment of shared humanity. Later, in the soft glow of the early morning light, Michael recounted the night's events with a trembling voice during an interview with a local news outlet. His words were laced with both lingering fear and deep gratitude. "I can't believe what happened," he said, his eyes reflecting the raw emotions of that unforgettable night. "I was terrified, I thought I was done for. But then Duke, with his unwavering loyalty, stepped in and gave me a chance to escape. I'm not sure I would have made it without him. That dog is my guardian angel." His heartfelt testimonial resonated with viewers, many of whom found their own hearts stirred by the tale of a pet who risked everything for his owner. In the days that followed, the story of Duke's heroism became a topic of conversation across the community. Neighbors exchanged stories about how they had heard the commotion and rushed to help, and local social media groups buzzed with admiration for the Pitbull's actions. Some residents even gathered in small groups on the street where the incident occurred, discussing how an ordinary night had been transformed by a single act of bravery. The police, too, lauded Duke's actions in their official statements, noting that while many people depended on alarms and cameras for protection, sometimes the most effective guardians were those who loved unconditionally. As Michael recovered from both the shock and the minor injuries he sustained during the confrontation, he began to see Duke not merely as a pet but as a true friend and protector. The bond between man and dog, already deep, had been forged anew in the crucible of danger. Michael took extra care of Duke in the days that followed, ensuring that his beloved companion received every bit of praise, care, and comfort that he so richly deserved. Family members and friends, too, showered Duke with affection and treats, each one a small token of thanks for the brave actions that had saved a life. That night's events had far-reaching effects. Local newspapers featured a detailed account of the altercation, accompanied by photos of Duke standing alert on the street, a picture that quickly went viral on social media. Commentators marveled at how the Pitbull's loyalty had not only disrupted a violent encounter but had also redefined public perceptions about the breed. In interviews, experts on animal behavior pointed out that Duke's reaction was a perfect example of how years of trust and companionship can prime an animal to detect danger and act decisively. When a pet feels that its owner is threatened, all the bonds of trust come rushing to the forefront. One expert explained, Duke's actions demonstrate that loyalty and love are powerful forces that can override any stereotype. As days turned into weeks, the neighborhood slowly returned to its daily rhythm. Yet, the memory of that fateful night remained etched in the minds of all who had witnessed it. Michael, forever changed by the ordeal, began to advocate for stronger community safety measures and greater awareness of the profound bond between humans and their pets. He attended neighborhood meetings, spoke at local schools about the importance of vigilance, and even volunteered to help others understand the subtle signals that a loving pet can offer in times of danger. For Duke, life continued much as it always had: quiet walks, playful moments at the park, and a steadfast devotion to his owner. But for those who knew his story, every glance from Duke was a reminder of that night when a simple walk turned into a battle for survival. And when a Pitbull's loyalty proved to be mightier than any threat. In the hearts of the community, Duke became a symbol of hope and courage, a living reminder that heroes sometimes come on four legs. Even as Michael healed physically, the emotional scars of that night slowly transformed into a source of inspiration. He often recalled the terrifying moments with a shudder but also with immense gratitude for the miracle that Duke had provided. In quiet moments of reflection, he would whisper a heartfelt, "Thank you," to his guardian, knowing that without Duke's intervention, the outcome might have been drastically different. The memory of that violent encounter, though painful, served as a catalyst for personal growth, a lesson in the true meaning of trust, loyalty, and the indomitable power of love. That night, when the darkness threatened to overwhelm the light, Duke's fierce protection had carved a path for hope, reminding everyone that even in the midst of chaos, there could be a beacon of safety. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Michael and Duke stepped forward into a new day, one where the bond between man and dog was celebrated as one of life's most precious treasures. In the moments following the attacker's retreat into the darkness, a profound silence fell over the street. The lingering echoes of Duke's barks gradually softened into a heavy quiet, punctuated only by the distant wail of approaching sirens. Michael, still trembling from adrenaline and shock, slowly rose to his feet. He looked at Duke, whose muscular form remained alert and vigilant even as the immediate danger had passed. The bond between them had been proven in the most harrowing of circumstances, a bond that now carried the weight of gratitude, relief, and an unspoken promise of lifelong loyalty. As the flashing lights of police cars and patrol units approached, neighbors began to gather, their faces etched with concern and curiosity. Many stepped out onto their porches and driveways, exchanging hushed words and anxious glances. The community, usually united in cheerful greetings and routine exchanges, now found itself collectively holding its breath. For some, it was the first time witnessing such raw bravery on their own street. For others, it was a stark reminder that danger could manifest in unexpected forms at any hour. Within minutes, uniformed officers descended upon the scene, their voices firm yet compassionate as they began to secure the area. Michael, with Duke still by his side, was escorted to the sidewalk while officers began taking statements from the onlookers. One officer, with a calm yet authoritative demeanor, knelt beside Michael and gently inquired about the sequence of events. Michael's voice quivered as he recounted how, one moment, he had been strolling peacefully with Duke, and the next, hostile figures had emerged from the shadows. He described in vivid detail how Duke had immediately positioned himself as a barrier, how his fierce barks had disrupted the attacker's plans, and how, in a matter of seconds, his beloved companion had transformed from a gentle friend into a fierce guardian. As Michael spoke, Duke remained alert, his eyes scanning the darkness as if expecting the threat to reappear. Neighbors offered quiet words of support and admiration, many commenting on how they had been awed by the dog's protective instinct. One witness, a middle-aged woman who had been returning home from work, recalled how she had immediately dialed 911 after witnessing the altercation. "I've never seen anything like it," she said later to the police. "That dog, he wasn't just barking, he was standing like a soldier, daring anyone to come closer to his owner. It was as if he knew exactly what he had to do." In the aftermath of the incident, a flurry of activities swept over the neighborhood. News crews arrived, their cameras capturing every detail of the unfolding drama. Reporters interviewed Michael, who, despite the lingering tremor in his voice, spoke passionately about Duke's heroic actions. "I felt utterly helpless until Duke stepped in," he recalled tearfully. "In that split second, I truly understood the depth of his loyalty. He saved me, not just physically, but by giving me the will to fight through the fear." Local law enforcement officers praised Duke's instinctive response as a prime example of the profound bond between humans and their pets. In follow-up press conferences, police representatives discussed how the incident had prompted them to consider new measures for community safety, emphasizing the importance of vigilance and the unpredictable nature of street crimes. Their statements often referenced Duke's intervention as a reminder that sometimes the best defense against violence comes not from technology or weaponry, but from the unyielding loyalty of a trusted companion. Over the next few days, the neighborhood buzzed with discussions about the altercation. Social media groups dedicated to the community were filled with posts celebrating Duke's heroism. Photographs of Duke, taken by grateful neighbors, spread quickly, accompanied by messages of support and admiration. Hashtags such as #GuardianDog, #Duke the Hero, and #Loyal Pitbull trended locally, as residents celebrated not only a dog who had saved a life, but the spirit of unity and courage that had emerged in the face of danger. As investigators pieced together the sequence of events, several of the attackers were identified, though their fate remained uncertain. The details that emerged painted a picture of a desperate, disorganized group who had underestimated the resolve of one determined animal. In subsequent interviews, local authorities expressed both relief that no one was seriously injured and deep respect for the unexpected hero who had thwarted a violent encounter. One detective, speaking off the record, remarked that incidents like these were rare but served as powerful reminders of the unpredictable nature of urban life and the invaluable role that pets can play in protecting their families. For Michael, the days following that night were marked by a tumult of emotions. Physical wounds, bruises and a few minor lacerations began to fade. But the psychological impact of the ordeal lingered. At first, every noise in the night would send a shiver down his spine. The memory of the attackers, their menacing expressions, and the chaotic moment when Duke had intervened were scenes replayed over and over in his mind. Yet, with time, these memories evolved. Michael began to see the incident not only as a moment of terror but as a turning point in his life. A moment when he learned the true meaning of unconditional love and loyalty. In heartfelt interviews with local newspapers and on community radio, Michael spoke of his newfound perspective. "I used to think that I was safe just because I lived in a quiet neighborhood," he admitted, "but that night, I learned that danger can find you anywhere. What saved me was not a security system or a locked door, it was Duke, who reminded me that the bonds we share with our loved ones are the strongest shields we have." His words resonated deeply with listeners, many of whom had their own stories of close calls and the unspoken heroics of their pets. The impact of the incident rippled outward, prompting discussions on how communities could better support and protect their vulnerable members. Neighborhood meetings were convened, focusing on strategies to improve street lighting, install additional security cameras, and promote neighborhood watch programs. Local law enforcement officers joined these discussions, emphasizing the importance of community cooperation and the unexpected allies found in everyday life. Duke's actions became a rallying symbol, a reminder that even in a world fraught with peril, acts of courage could spark a collective will to make a safer environment for everyone. At the same time, animal behavior experts began to weigh in on the incident, offering insights into why Duke had reacted so fiercely. In televised segments and community forums, experts explained that dogs, especially those with deep bonds to their owners, often possess an extraordinary sensitivity to changes in their environment. When an animal senses that its family is in danger, the natural response is to protect at all costs. One expert explained, Duke's reaction was not just instinctual, it was the culmination of years of trust, training, and emotional connection with his owner. These insights helped to educate the public about the remarkable capabilities of pets, shifting perceptions and fostering a greater appreciation for the unspoken communication between humans and animals. As weeks turned into months, the story of that fateful night became interwoven into the fabric of the community's shared history. Michael and Duke were invited to speak at local schools and community centers, where their story served as both a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope. In classrooms, teachers used the narrative to illustrate themes of bravery, resilience, and the importance of compassion. Children listened, wide-eyed and inspired, as Michael recounted the terror of that night and the miraculous intervention of his loyal friend. Family gatherings and community events began to feature moments of remembrance for the incident, not as a celebration of violence, but as a tribute to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of loyalty. In one particularly moving ceremony held at the neighborhood park, residents gathered to plant a tree in honor of Duke's bravery. The tree, a living testament to the event, was inscribed with words of gratitude and hope. As the community came together to nurture this symbol of life and renewal, the memory of that dark night was gradually replaced by a collective determination to build a safer, more connected environment. Over time, Michael's perspective on life transformed. The incident, while harrowing, had instilled in him a newfound sense of purpose. He began advocating for animal welfare and community safety, collaborating with local organizations to develop programs that emphasized the importance of responsible pet ownership and mutual support among neighbors. His efforts led to workshops, safety seminars, and even an annual community event dedicated to recognizing the unsung heroes, both human and animal, of the neighborhood. Through these initiatives, Michael hoped to share the lessons he had learned, ensuring that Duke's legacy would continue to inspire others long after the memory of that violent night had faded. Duke, for his part, seemed to carry on with a quiet dignity. In the months that followed, he was often seen on his routine walks, his gaze calm and knowing, as if he fully understood the weight of what had transpired. Neighbors who encountered him would exchange nods of respect and gentle smiles, silently acknowledging that they had witnessed a glimpse of something extraordinary. A dog who had stepped beyond the bounds of expectation to become a guardian, a protector, and an enduring symbol of hope. In interviews with local television stations, Michael would often pause when speaking about that night, his eyes glistening with both gratitude and a lingering hint of sorrow for the near miss that had forever altered his life. Every time I see Duke's steady, unwavering gaze, I'm reminded that even in our darkest moments, there is a light that guides us, he would say. He showed me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the strength to act despite it. And for that, I will always be grateful. As the community moved forward, the story of Duke's heroism continued to serve as a catalyst for change. Schools integrated lessons on personal safety and the importance of alertness, drawing on Duke's example to teach children that the bonds of loyalty and trust can often be the best defense against danger. Local law enforcement agencies collaborated with community leaders to enhance neighborhood patrols and security measures, ensuring that residents felt safer in the wake of the incident. The ripple effects of that night reached far beyond the immediate chaos. It became a powerful reminder that even in the face of violence, unity and compassion could prevail. In quieter moments, when the moon hung low in the sky and the streets fell silent once more, Michael would often take a solitary walk with Duke, retracing the steps of that fateful night. As they walked side by side, the cool night air and gentle rustling of leaves served as a backdrop to his reflections. Each step was a reminder of the fragility of life and the extraordinary capacity for love and courage that resided in unexpected places. And as Duke walked faithfully at his side, Michael knew that no matter what the future held, they would always have each other, a bond forged in adversity and tempered by unwavering loyalty. Thus, the tale of that violent street encounter was not simply a recounting of danger and defense. It had become a living testament to the power of connection. It was a story told and retold in the quiet moments of dawn and the bustling chatter of community gatherings. A narrative that celebrated the resilience of the human spirit and the extraordinary instincts of a devoted companion. In every retelling, Duke's image remained unchanged, a steadfast guardian, a four-legged hero whose bravery had turned a night of terror into a beacon of hope. As seasons changed and years passed, the memory of that night continued to shine brightly in the hearts of all who had witnessed it. Duke's story inspired new generations, instilling in them the belief that true courage often comes in the form of loyalty and love. And for Michael, every day was a reminder that amidst life's unpredictability, the greatest gift one can receive is the unwavering protection of a loyal friend.